Hey everyone, welcome to another Referral Candy and Ladder webinar. Today we're going to be talking about marketing design strategies that help you optimize your site to maximize conversions. My name is Raul and I'll be your host today. I'm the partner manager here at Referral Candy, and with me today is Natalie Lasso, who is the director of design at ladder.io, and she will be explaining to you guys how you can optimize your e-commerce sites to maximize conversions. So, Natalie, all yours.
As Raul said, this is going to be a presentation about how to optimize your site to get the maximum conversions and maximum to minimize as much bounce rate as possible when it comes to marketing your site and also being able to design your site with conversions in mind. So let's just hop right into it. Raul was nice enough to introduce me, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me as well. Like he said, I am the director of design at Ladder. I've been here for a little over 2 years now, and I've shipped and delivered / published over 300 landing pages just across our body of clients in both the US and the UK. So everything from social media ads to complete client UX UI overhauls, any type of branding design work I've also done. So a little bit of everything under the design umbrella. But in terms of our client work, landing pages is really where we get a lot of our conversions and a lot of our traffic from. So you can find me across the web after this presentation if you'd like, but just get right into it. So the topics that we're going to be covering today, we're going to be, of course, talking about landing pages and conversion, best practices when it comes to creating those sites, general design principles that I found are incredibly useful to know, color psychology, the research behind it, best practices across different types of sites. So in this situation, we'll be focusing a little bit more on e-commerce. Optimization of these sites, so CRO testing, A/B testing, and some mobile versus desktop traffic, which in this day and age of technology is incredibly, incredibly important. We'll talk about different examples of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, some tools of the trade, which involve different landing page generation sites like Unbounce, different A/B testing softwares like Optimizely, VWO, and how to use these sites effectively. Going through some basic coding as well, that's incredibly useful when it comes to implementing scripts to actually track traffic on these sites, design-related tactics, so different things that you can do to optimize your current site. And I also will be including a trove of my own resources and different types of email newsletters that I found incredibly useful during my time here at Ladder while designing for different types of clients. So without further ado, some landing page terminology. So just some basics into landing pages. A landing page by definition is a standalone page that's used for a specific objective. So that objective can range anything from wanting to acquire more emails for a sort of coming soon page, to clicking through to, say, another part of your main website, or even offering some sort of freebie. Gated content that you give us your email and we'll give you this amazing white paper on how to do X, Y, and Z for your company. So how is this relevant to marketing? So using design for user acquisition is a huge and incredibly great resource to boost your numbers, to get more traffic, and to give you and your company a fast and efficient way to kind of get your message out to the rest of the world. So especially working at a marketing agency now, being able to see landing pages as a main part of the funnel for actual traffic, user acquisition, and later down the line retention, it's an incredibly great way to be able to track all of these numbers and see where you can better optimize in that funnel. Some quick principles of design for your landing page. I am actually classically trained as an artist. That's what I went to school for, with a focus in graphic design. So all of these principles and elements of design have kind of bled into the world of landing pages. And you'll find that color and different ways of kind of accessing your client base psychologically is incredibly useful. This is one of my favorite graphics that I've encountered on the internet, actually. And it's a basic color emotion guide. So different colors will kind of evoke different emotions from your user base. So depending on what you're marketing or what your e-commerce site is kind of selling, it kind of gives you a good baseline of what kind of colors you should be using. Directionality is another very important method that I use in a lot of our landing pages. So, for example, putting a GIF arrow or something animated that is directionally pointed at your CTA is going to be way more effective than just having a regular button with, say, a muted color that won't actually grab someone's attention. Encapsulation, again, is another really great way to kind of draw more attention to a form. Putting a form in a container will drive more attention to it, especially if the container color is different from the background. It'll help reduce noise and also kind of draw the audience's attention to it, where, of course, you want them to click. Contrast, again, is another great color/design principle. So say putting a red button against a green background is going to be way more stand out and attract more attention than, say, a gray button against a darker or a black background. Especially in psychology, especially on the web and in general UI practice, if you put something gray on your website, psychologically speaking, people will think it's not a clickable item. So just a quick kind of application to the teaching. And of course, use of white space. This is a really, really big one that's come up a lot, especially in design trends in this day and age, that creating more space is actually a great way to create more importance. So more space actually gives the reader's eye a better way of digesting the information and encourages the user to explore more down the page. So sometimes less is more. And of course, all of these design principles can be applied to social media ads and other different design elements across the web. So quick example here. This was actually with one of our past clients that we did a kind of versus round with their homepage that they believed was optimized for conversion. And on the right is a landing page that we created. So just as a quick comparison, and I've already done the math, in this hero section alone, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bleeds. And bleeds, for those of you who don't know what that means, is any part of a website that will lead the viewer or the user away from the current page they're on can be considered a bleed. And from a conversion standpoint, that is not good. So in this case, the main site that they had has 10 bleeds on it, and which, from a homepage versus a landing page, as we discussed, a landing page has one goal and one goal alone. And in this case, it was to get the user to click the buy now button. So versus our landing page, which had no bleeds actually, except for the buy now button. Even the watch video was a light box. So that kind of opened up on the same page and it never led anyone away from the page that they were on. So you can see that from this page to this page, it's we kind of have started using these different elements of design already. So we kind of gave more space to the top hero image. We gave the header more space to breathe. We designed the buttons slightly different, put them more central so that the buy now button was definitely the focal point. And later down the line, we'll talk about this, but we also put social proof towards the top of the page, which in this, again, day and age is incredibly important to have some proof that your product that you're selling to your market actually works and is trusted by a larger audience. So from this page to this page, we actually saw an incredible increase in conversion rate and retention just on this site alone. So again, it's kind of putting these different elements into action and increasing our clients' retention and the interest in buying their product. So again, some factors that might affect your conversion rate. Form fields and display and form filters. These are huge aspects of creating your site. So if you have something that is a lead generation form, meaning that people need to input information in order to get more information, you want to make sure that, if at all possible, you can minimize the amount of forms on the page, which, of course, more forms means more information that people need to fill out, which means less conversion in the end. And of course, form filters, which if you need to make sure that leads are of a certain quality, that can also affect the amount of people that will be able to fill out the form. Information layout and hierarchy is a huge aspect as well. So this can be anything from how your fonts and your copy is laid out to the quality of your product shots and how these elements are laid out on your website. Also value propositions. So this in this case is, product features. As you saw in our previous example, the product features were featured right directly underneath the fold after the social proof, which is kind of what you need people to see, especially since scroll depth on websites can vary depending on the audience. And again, social proof is also incredibly important, and I believe we'll be touching on that a little bit later, and possibly in a later webinar, actually, on how logos, ratings, and real people reviews, and I put that in quotes because sometimes those aren't real, but in this case, we'll consider them real, how all of these psychologically affect your viewer into trusting what you're selling. Again, imagery, incredibly important. Quality images and photography is the best way to kind of get users interested in what you're selling. Grainy images and lesser quality images will definitely be a huge turnoff in terms of viewers wanting to know more, and it'll also give your site more credibility. And again, CTA button color. If you have a great brand that has amazing colors, you definitely want to make sure that you use them for emphasis as much as possible to make your CTAs stand out. Whether or not that's a buy now or a learn more button, it's all equally important. So given all of that, you have a brand spanking new landing page with all of the above, but your numbers are still low. So what do you do from there? So this is one of the most important parts of landing pages, or just conversion optimization in general, is A/B testing. So I'm sure you've heard this thrown around a lot in this e-commerce world. But when you change a variable on the original page and you pit that original against the variation, usually at a 50-50 split percentage of users, which means if a user visits your site, they have a 50-50 chance of getting served either the original, the control, or the variation. And so from there, you can decide from whichever performs better. You can then make that variation the champion and then continue with different tests after that. So what can be tested? From my experience, all content on the original page is up for testing. So this can be anything from what we've already discussed with button colors, different imagery or photos, lessening or adding more copy, adjusting form fields, or editing even the page design itself, the entire hierarchy. So from here, you have to make sure that one variable is changed in order to be able to have a clean test. If more than one variable is changed, you won't have a clear understanding of what worked and what didn't, and that can muddle up the test results from there on, and you won't know what increased or decreased the user retention. So another quick example from a past client that we've had. This specific client was an e-commerce store for children's clothing. And so when they started to launch, we decided to create a coming soon page, which again was a very simple no scroll page that asked for an email in order to get, in exchange for, say, a discount on your very first order once the shop launched. So in this case, since this is a static image, unfortunately you can't see this, but the black arrow was actually a bouncing GIF arrow that, again, provided directionality towards the CTA button. So this page was performing well overall, but we decided that since the numbers were still low, we wanted to do an A/B test in order to see what would possibly increase this conversion rate. So from there, we decided that we would create an A/B test with imagery, and this was the variation, which everything these have different copy in the screenshots, but they were also the same page at one point, aside from the copy. So as long as that gets ignored, the general layout was the same. But the only thing that changed was the image in the background. So this was actually turning into a typical boys versus girls A/B test. And aside from getting more information on this, we ended up at the end figuring out that we saw a spike of about 30% difference in conversion rate from this variation to this control. And we looked at it and we decided, well, why was this? And aside from the obvious girls are better than boys argument, we decided that the reason was because the audience were, either new moms or moms that were looking for specific products for their kids. And since we had this sort of market, we decided to start using this image across other means. So we did Google Display Network ads and different Facebook social media ads, and we saw that the conversion across the board increased when we decided to use this image over the other image. So again, one variation was changed, and we saw an incredible increase in user engagement after doing this test. So some tools of the trade and some different hints. For those of you who are old enough to understand the horror that was Geocities sites, here's what you don't want your page to look like. So some different landing page builders that I've used personally. Some popular tools in the industry right now are Unbounce, which is actually the site that we use the most at Ladder. Instapage is another popular one, and then from there you have different landing page optimization sites or just general CRO optimization sites like Optimizely, Google Optimize, and VWO, in just to name a few. But the list does go on. There are many different sites, but for now I'd like to focus in on Unbounce and Instapage. So which would be right for you? Drag and drop versus front-end focused tools is a huge difference. Depending on your own company, if you have the development resource in order to go for something more front-end, then by all means go ahead. It offers a little bit more customization, but tools like Unbounce, which is primarily drag and drop, but also offers coding customization, is what we find to be the best mix. So like I said, tools like Unbounce are nice. They allow the page to be built with less HTML, CSS involvement, but they also offer mobile optimization through their platform. And although Unbounce offers further customization through code, it can do even more than the platform generally allows, and they also have an incredible support team. So if you're working with a development team that can build more complex pages, then that's awesome. But if not, the Unbounce community and their support system is incredibly useful and can help you solve some simple HTML, CSS, JavaScript issues, like say implementing scripts or being able to add certain CSS hover effects or micro interactions to your page. Again, other tools and nice to haves. Some third-party tools that I enjoy using, like say something along the lines of SumoMe. These tools have free opportunities to use heat maps just to see where users are clicking, where they're hovering, and where their attention is generally being pulled to. So it actually visually is able to tell you how many times users have clicked on certain elements on their page, and also gives insight into, say you have something on your site that isn't clickable, but people are still going to it. Like, say, for example, your logo in the corner wasn't actually a clickable element, but you see that there are over 300 clicks on it. That would imply that they're trying to go somewhere like, say, a home page, but aren't given the opportunity. So instead of having users drop off, that could be an incredible way to get more traffic to stay on your site. Other landing page sections that really help boost engagement. Social proof, again, just to drive home the point, is incredibly important. If you have an e-commerce site that has gotten products that have amazing reviews or have been featured in different types of publications, that's an incredible opportunity to not only display those logos, but start to gain more traction and trust in your user base. I've seen awards being displayed for, say, different technological types of e-commerce sites that sell technology-based products, or even just reviews of users that have sung praise about your products. It's incredibly important and helps build a sense of trust with your potential users. Smart bars or other exit intents. These can offer not only deals for your potential users, but also discourage the user from bouncing from your site or leaving without purchasing or engaging with any elements. Any sort of smart bar that offers a 10% off code for new users is great. You can also get that as an opportunity to start building an email list to continue on funnel testing. All of these are incredible resources that can be, I believe, are free, especially on SumoMe, but allow also for different ways to engage with the user base on your site aside from the site itself. So on average, the percent of users that scroll to the bottom of the page is usually around 13%. These are from pages that or other resources that I've seen. Like I said, heat maps are a great way to see where people are clicking, but they also offer a scroll depth to see where users are dropping off. So if you have sections of the page that aren't being engaged with, like say further down the scroll line, you want to make sure that the importance of the sections of your page are arranged in order to reflect a certain hierarchy. So for example, no one is going to see social proof at the bottom of the page if only 13% of the people are scrolling to the bottom. You want to make sure that any sort of email CTA is displayed at the top or has buttons, some sort of anchor in order to get people to engage with that specific section of the page. So again, incredibly useful to have these tools to kind of gauge where your users are engaging and where they aren't. And this can also help inform you on what to later A/B test down the line on your page. And just my quick plug for some resources. As I mentioned before, design resources are incredibly important, especially as someone who's been based in that realm for a while. So getting a hold of some web design trends and, of course, researching into possible competitor pages to see what they're doing. They say that imitation is the best form of flattery. So I always encourage people to check out what their competitors are doing, check out the latest web design trends, just to keep up with what people are producing nowadays, as it's always changing. And of course, different email, blog, newsletters that I always love checking out. Unbounce has an amazing blog with great resources. Different web design newsletters, hacker newsletter is one that I subscribe to just to get the latest and greatest. And of course, different types of landing page inspiration. So say video landing pages are getting up and up these days. And if you want to create one that will be effective and not detract from the page itself, here are some resources for that. And of course, different design magazines and imagery resources in order to start sprucing up your site are provided here as well. So I believe that is the end of my presentation.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Natalie. We feel like all of us here, including me, learned a lot today. I have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Things going through your presentation. So actually, if we can go back to the Gotina, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes, go
One of the
Kenna.
first. Okay, cool. So yeah, that one. So my thought when looking at I would say the first screenshot was that I feel like we all tend to give too much information in the homepage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm talking in behalf of e-commerce merchants because we know that people have short attention span. So we try to explain as much as we can about our brand and about our company before they close the tab.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so I know that obviously the example that you showed on the right of your design makes a lot of sense because you're going straight to the point and straight to where you want your customers to go. But what would be an easy way, or what would be like the process that a merchant will have to go through, kind of to make sure that they're not having too many call to actions in the homepage? What's the test that they can do themselves to see if their website it's running or it's showing too many call to actions?
Right. So again, I think in this situation, if you were to implement some sort of heat map to see where your users are clicking, I think that would be an incredibly useful place to see, if you wanted to start cutting down on the amount of bleeds or the amount of information that you're displaying on your site. I believe that that would be a great way to start, because if you have someone who, or like an audience that isn't, say, clicking on a specific element or a specific button that you thought would be sure to convert, but isn't, that could be a good place to start. But aside from that, I've seen a lot of e-commerce sites that say, for example, this site on the right was a little bit more generic, but if you had any sort of deal going on, that would be what you would want displayed in the hero image first and foremost.
Right.
Especially if, we're around the holiday season now. Black Friday deals were running rampant, and there are sites who still have, banner images up for certain deals, like, save this much on this product. Stock is running low. Go buy it now. That sort of thing would be useful. But like I said before too, since people, like you said, have short attention spans, you definitely want to make sure that all of the information that they need to see is laid out as simply as possible. So you'll see that actually below in the value proposition section, people were encouraged to kind of click on each element down here, which I thought was, in that case, like, you want all of the information out there to be digested as is. So we actually took that out and kind of displayed all of that information in more bite-sized pieces. So in that case, I think if you're displaying a lot of different products on your site, as long as they're laid out with adequate amounts of space, and aren't all trying to compete for the same attention. Again, hierarchy is incredibly important in that. So if you want them to click on a specific item, you're going to have to make sure that hierarchically and in a design sense draws more attention than anything else on the page.
I also like that you guys. I think you mentioned this during this slide. Is that you guys included the social proof there,
Yes.
with I don't know if they're awards or, but
Yes. Yes. Yes.
gives sense of.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay. Yeah.
these are actually, like I said, these are awards that this product has won over time. So and again, from very reputable sources that anyone in the technological space would recognize. So PC Mag,
Right.
Other types of travel, and people who are outdoor enthusiasts. This is like technology that they would want. So again, it's marketing towards that very specific audience, and giving them more reason to convert rather than just to kind of gloss over it and dismiss it.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. And kind of in the same line. So I'm asking you questions on behalf of the commerce merchants that are listening to us right now. So what kind of pages will be appropriate for each specific, I would say, business or type of industry that you're working on? So should you go for a lead generation page? Where should you go for kind of like click through? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in that sense, again, it greatly depends on the audience and the test that you're running. So say, for example, if you had something like a click-through page, Say for this specific product that you had a new product, like a V2 of it coming out. For this, I would, for this sort of example, I would say that a click-through page would be more beneficial because you can use a landing page as sort of like an at-a-glance view of that new product, and then be able to tell them, like, learn more information, and then shoot them straight to that specific product page to get all of the different specs. And if it depends on what you would like to use as well. Like, say you have a new product that's coming soon, and you want to start generating either hype for it, or you want to start getting an audience and kind of gauge who's interested in it. I think a lead generation form to get like an email would be great to start building that list, and offering them some sort of discount is a great way to kind of, again, make sure that they convert in the end once the product actually launches. So in that sense, again, as long as your page has a very specific goal in mind. So either you want to get more traffic, you want to get more user acquisition, you want people to actually convert and buy your product. It greatly depends on the actual goal of the site. So again, I've given a few examples now, but in terms of the page itself, it depends on the product or the e-commerce business that you're trying to promote.
Right. Makes sense. And talking also about mobile optimization, because
Yes.
you mentioned this during your session, is the fact that, well, I don't have the stats in mind right now, but most of the sales, or like a very important percentage of the sales that e-commerce merchants see, are coming through through mobile sites. So in terms of that, because obviously you have less space there, you have to be more careful, I feel like, with your design. What are tips that you would share with merchants on this?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're talking about the design team that's involved with actually generating these sites, I've seen a lot of people who have actually done a mobile first approach, that they lay out all of their information in wireframes and in concepts on mobile first, before even touching the desktop version. Making sure that you have a mobile optimized site is incredibly vital, especially in this day and age. I know personally, if I think of something and need to buy it, the first thing I do is take out my phone and go on Amazon or go do whatever to find the product that I need, and just buy it straight from my phone. So if those pages that I would visit weren't optimized for mobile, it would kill conversion across the board. You wouldn't see nearly as much traffic on the page as in terms of conversions as you would normally. So my suggestion would be to optimize for mobile first. Being able to identify which elements are the most important on the page in order to be displayed in that first, because mobile has a fold as well, kind of like talking of the above the fold or the hero image. So again, like you said, space is very, very limited. So making sure that everything is legible, making sure that graphics are also mobile optimized and aren't taking up the entire screen. And just ensuring that the actual UX and the flow of things is optimized for that mobile experience as well is incredibly important. Whether that be, the actual add to cart features, accessing menus, or even just finding more information and making sure that desktop interactions are compatible with mobile interactions. Some effects that you would like to have on a desktop isn't available on mobile. So again, just making sure that that the designers or the people who are making the site know that all of these elements should be designed to be mobile compatible as well is incredibly important.
Okay, sounds good. I think it makes a lot of sense to go for a mobile first approach, because, like you said, anytime you think of a product, especially now that we're in the holiday season, we're all buying our presents for Christmas. Probably the first place that we're looking at is our phone, and then maybe we're complete the purchase on desktop. But but that initial approach, it's always through mobile, so it makes a lot of sense that you go for that first. I have a question. This is out of curiosity, actually.
Yes.
So I was paying special attention at that A/B testing that you showed. I don't remember the name of the brand. Well, the kids.
We've hidden the name of the brand for NDA reasons, but yes, this one.
Okay, okay, perfect. So one of the things that that actually called my attention was the fact that so you mentioned that yeah, those two kids are looking at the viewer, and
Hmm.
that and the girl, I believe she is as well.
Hmm.
And you mentioned that this actually helps to increase conversions. Um, I'm actually, again, this is out of curiosity. Is there any sort of like psychological factor behind there? Is there any, I don't know, explanation that explains why this increases conversions? And I have another follow up question regarding this pictures after that.
Yeah, sure. Yes, actually, psychologically speaking, if the subject of the image is actually looking at the viewer, it actually kind of creates that sort of psychological link with the viewer. I believe that that in general is also considered a directionality approach,
All
and
right.
we've actually used this with a few other clients and found that if the image or like the subject of the image is looking at the viewer, it kind of creates a more personal approach and kind of creates that sort of intimacy with the viewer. I've also seen instances where if the subject, this is a little harder to do, but if the subject is actually looking at the, so say for example, if these kids were actually looking at the email submission form or in that direction, again, that sort of directionality would help boost the amount of people who actually go to convert.
Oh, I see.
Seeing as we already have the directionality of the GIF arrow kind of pointing down at the CTA itself, that kind of takes care of that. So this was kind of to just create more intimacy with our audience, who in this instance were, moms, around 30 to 40. That was kind of the specific target audience we were looking for.
I see.
But yeah, so in this case, since they're cute kids and are
Mm-mm.
interacting with this audience that is already already emotionally responsive to this sort
Yep.
of imagery, it worked really well.
That's very smart. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And also, I was just also thinking, yeah, what if they were looking at the button instead? But yeah, we'll also create that sense of direction, right?
Yes, yes, and I've seen that work with a few other clients as well. But again, if the assets or the actual imagery works in that way, then of course I'll definitely go for that and consider that. But usually that's a little bit harder to accomplish.
Right, right, right. Makes sense. And so my last question was kind of like a follow-up question on this one.
Hmm.
Um, it's talking about design, but also a little bit of social proof, as we'll discuss this in a different session, as
Hmm.
you also mentioned. So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on a mix between, or what will be the versus case? So like using professionally taken pictures like this one, for example,
Hmm.
that we have here. This is clearly in a photography studio. What will
Hmm.
be better using a picture like this versus user generated content, which obviously it's probably going to be less quality of a picture. It's obviously not going to look professionally taken, but
Hmm.
it will give you that sense of, look, this is how the product looks like in real life. So what are your
Right.
thoughts on using professionally taken versus user generated content?
Right. So again, it vastly depends on where those images are going to be displayed. So my recommendation on that would be to, if you had professionally taken photographs, like say this one here, to maintain that in the hero section. But if you were to have a section of social proof, like say maybe one or two sections down, in which you could display, like say having an Instagram feed of people who have used like a specific hashtag, like say for example you're have the specific clothing line, you can kind of display a live feed of people who have taken pictures of like say their kids wearing these specific items, and that could be the way that you kind of implement both on the same site. If you had the opportunity to, if you had to choose between the two of them, I would actually opt for, especially in a hero image situation, to opt for the more professional photographs.
Right.
But if you had the ability to take both into consideration, I would say definitely creating some sort of feed or something in which a user could go to and see pictures of actual, people using their product. I found that actually to be incredibly, incredibly useful in terms of a conversion standpoint. So we've actually done that with a few of our clients in the past as well, and have seen that, it also encourages users who have bought their stuff to engage with the company more on that level,
Right.
especially in this age of social media.
Exactly. Yeah. And to wrap up with the webinar, which again I got to thank you for taking your time today to explaining all this.
Yeah,
We've all learned a lot, include myself.
of course.
It's been great. I have one last question, and so you mentioned your numbers at the beginning. You've worked with hundreds of different landing pages and companies.
Mm-hmm.
What's the mistake that you've seen merchants do more often, and what would be an easy way of solving it?
Oh goodness, this is the real question, and I have an answer for it. The thing that usually kills me the most, and what I've seen with a lot of our e-commerce clients that have come in, is that they love to put image carousels in their hero, which
Ah,
there are so many articles that are for and against, but normally I see that no matter if an image carousel in the hero will actually not increase the conversion or the user retention on a page. And the reason being is because if you're on a site like, say, this one over here, if you had a rotating image at the top in the hero that displays, say, for example, different hero copy, it muddles the purpose of the page. There are some
right.
sites that use it semi-effectively, but at the same time, unless a user is bent on actually engaging with the site, no one will actually click on those different carousel buttons to continue on the flow. They just see what they see first, and then they continue on. The attention span, like you said before, is incredibly low. So expecting a user to be able to digest different kind of CTAs and different hero copies is just a little, it's putting too much faith in the user.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so my suggestion would be to just keep it simple. Have one objective and one goal to your actual page, and stick with that and make it the most important thing. Because if you're going to, if any user is going to go to a page, you want them to have the takeaway be the most important, that most important element that you want them to see. So if you put 50% off of this, and then the next carousel says 30% off of this, they're never going to remember that.
Right, right.
So my suggestion for any e-commerce business out there is to get rid of the carousel,
Wow.
and make sure that whatever, stick to kind of one goal per page in order to get someone to convert more effectively.
That's very interesting. I will have never guessed that will be your main takeaway, because it's so common.
It's incredibly common, but
Right?
across the board, I can guarantee you that the expectation versus the reality of engagement on those carousels is slim to none.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe you'll say something about like, I don't know, putting text in an image, instead of
Yeah.
having them separately, things like that. But it does distract the user. I mean, it happened to me as a user that you're on a website, and you start scrolling down, and then you see that the image is changing. So maybe you go back to see if you're missing something. So
Mm-hmm.
that already creates a little sense of distraction, and kind of
Yes.
makes you miss the point of what the page is actually trying to tell you.
Yes, exactly. And to your point about text in an image, I've actually seen a lot of sites again do that and have like composites where the text is built into the image itself, which just to touch on that, from the SEO standpoint, that's usually not something you want to do, because in terms of like, crawling on like a site that, say, Google does, they won't
Right.
actually be able to read that information. And you might be missing out on major keywords or major like wins in terms of like actual keyword search.
Mhm.
So I would also recommend not doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think we are at the end of the webinar. Natalie, it was great having you here. We've learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed as well.
Yes,
So
of
again,
course.
thank you so much.
I love spreading the knowledge as much as I possibly can. So thank you so much for having me, Raul.
Awesome. And to all of you who attended today, thank you so much. If you have any follow-up questions, we'll be sending an email after this webinar. You can reply to that, and we'll both Natalie and I will be happy to answer your follow-up questions. Again, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Natalie. See you guys next time.
Yep. See you. Thank you.